this ties into the next two stories that we're gonna discuss, which are also climate centric. One of them's from The Guardian, which highlights how destructive Donald Trump is in regards to undoing the already mild climate actions that the United States has undergone. One thing we're not going to talk about, but did make the news recently, is the House of Representatives found a way to put a hold on California banning the sale of gasoline powered vehicles by 2035. That's great. Another W for all of the pro climate change people out there. The other article that we're going to discuss comes from the Associated Press, which is way more frightening than the first one. And that is the Justice Department suing individual states over their climate actions. Before we get into that, we're going to get into the first article I mentioned, courtesy of The Guardian. Trump has launched more attacks on the environment in 100 days than in his entire first term. Now, keep in mind, Donald Trump was openly critical of climate change in his first term. I mean, he pulled out of the Paris Climate Accords twice, two times. This many. He does not give a singular fuck about the climate. Partly because he probably thinks that it's woke, like climate change is just like woke and gay. And it's also that he's an old narcissist and he's not going to be he's not going to be around to experience the ramifications of climate change, like, like 20, 30, 40 years down the line. Donald Trump has launched an unprecedented assault upon the environment, instigating 145 actions to undo rules protecting clean air, water, and a livable climate in his administration's first 100 days, more rollbacks than were completed in Trump's entire first term as president. Trump's blitzkrieg has hit almost every major policy to shield Americans from toxic pollution, curb the worsening impact of the climate crisis, and protect landscapes, oceans, forests, and imperiled wildlife. In all, the second Trump administration has launched 145 actions, a dizzying rate of more than one a day since his January 20th inauguration, to repeal or weaken environmental rules and escalate the use of planet heating, fossil fuels. A Guardian analysis has found the total is derived from research by Columbia, Harvard Law, and his administration announcements. While many of these initial moves are far from complete and face severe legal challenges or years of further rulemaking, the pace of the rollbacks is already set to outstrip Trump's entire first presidency, which saw about 110 environmental rules scaled back or revoked. Quote, "What we've seen in these first 100 days is unprecedented. The deregulatory ambition of this administration is mind-blowing," said Michael Berger, an expert in climate law at Columbia University. "They are doing things faster and with less process than last time, often disregarding the law. The intent is to shock, overwhelm, and to overcome resistance through sheer force of numbers." True. Even if none of this action goes through, even if none of these executive orders come to pass, it is still going to be put on the judiciary to rule on these. They're going to have to see the cases, rule on them, but they're laying the groundwork for future Republican administrations to do whatever doesn't pass. They are attempting to stress test the system. They're going to get through what they're going to get through now, but they're also laying the groundwork for further climate actions to be repealed or instituted. Through executive orders, agency memos, and other policy moves, the Trump administration has deleted a swath of Joe Biden-era green policies, frozen climate spending, removed the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accords, and set about rewriting population standards for cars, trucks, or pollution standards, holy shit, for cars, trucks, and power plants. One of the things that Donald Trump did is in regards to what's called Cancer Alley. It is this industrial section of Louisiana, I believe, where they manufacture, I want to say it's Kevlar vests. I don't remember if they're Kevlar, if they're bulletproof, or if I'm just a fucking dumbass and I don't know that they're the same thing. But the production of these vests emits high amounts of pollution, and the cancer rates surrounding these factories in the county surrounding these factories is significantly higher than the national average. Joe Biden's Department of Justice was suing the makers of these vests. The Trump administration comes in and throws that lawsuit out. We have a pro-cancer president, guys. What more do I need to say to you? Sprawling tracts of land, including the Arctic, have been earmarked for new oil and gas drilling. Commercial fishing will be ushered into ocean sanctuaries, and half of the U.S.'s vast expanse of national forests can now be cut down for timber. Laws to prevent harm in endangered species are set to be drastically pared back, while protected national monuments are on course to be shrunk. Trump's actions have often explicitly favored a fossil fuel industry that donated heavily to his presidential campaign. A start has been made in winding back rules on emissions of greenhouse gases and toxins such as mercury, as well as pipeline safety regulations. He also appointed Lee Zeldin to lead the EPA, who was one of the least climate-friendly members of Congress, and is someone who is going to take unlimited money from the oil and gas industry. After declaring an energy emergency that elides any mention of renewable energy, Trump has ordered a revival of the coal industry, exempted dozens of coal power plants from clean air rules, and restarted gas exports, while conversely blocking the approval of new solar projects and wind turbines, which he has called ugly and disgusting. He also thinks that wind turbines kill birds at a staggering rate because the bird just flies into the turbine, which is just remarkably untrue. You mean to tell me that a fucking bird does not see a goddamn wind turbine, this monstrosity that just sits in the middle of the ocean? Am I yeah, I'm sure that birds fucking fly into them sometimes. What's how like birds fly into fucking planes, but it's not like an epidemic or anything. Trump has said America needs to drill, baby, drill for as much oil and gas, which he calls liquid gold, as possible. His administration is urging the extraction of fossil fuels and other minerals from all corners of the United States, radically speeding up required permits, and even defying the international community by opening up the Pacific Ocean seabed to mining. America is sitting on a treasure trove of energy, and under President Trump's leadership, we're unlocking it, said Doug Burgum, Trump's Interior Secretary. Trump talks about drill, baby, drill as a way to help make the country rich again. What the base fails to comprehend is that when ExxonMobil drills into your fucking backyard and sucks all the gas out from underneath your home, they sell it. Like, it goes to Europe, it goes overseas. They don't sell it back to you. And even when they do sell it back to you, it's at like triple the fucking price. More oil and gas only serves to enrich the pockets of the oil and gas executives. Don't get it twisted. I'm very much a proponent of clean energy, and I do think that we need to get off of fossil fuels as quickly as possible. However, I'm pragmatic. I understand that you can't just transition to green energy right away. You are still going to need some fossil fuel. You're still going to need to burn fossil fuels as you transition to green energy. But Trump is not even acknowledging that green energy exists and is a much better source of power, and even in some instances a cheaper source of power. A White House spokesperson said that Trump was, quote, unleashing American energy like never before, ending the Green New Scam, which never went through Congress, by the way, cutting harmful regulations, reopening offshore drilling, and approving the first liquefied natural gas project since Joe Biden's disastrous ban last year. He added, quote, we're achieving historic results at record speeds and we're just getting started. However, multiple analysts have pointed out that the U.S. was already extracting record levels of oil and gas, producing more than it consumes and becoming a worldwide leader of fossil fuels, a worldwide leading exporter of fossil fuels. Why does the media not talk about this more? Why do no media outlets mention the fact that the United States already exports more barrels of oil than any other country on the planet? 19.6 millions of barrels of oil and gas a day. 19.6 million. 19.6 million. How much more oil and gas is there? How much more drilling can we do? The burning of these fuels is dangerously heating the planet to levels not seen during human civilization, unleashing disastrous heat waves, floods, droughts, and other worsening calamities. Climate activists have been left aghast at the opening moves from the latest Trump White House. Quote, never before has an American president been so hostile to science and so beholden to fossil fuel interests, said Jason Rylander, legal director of the Center for Biological Diversity's Climate Law Institute. Quote, the scope and scale of President Trump's assaults on protections for people and the planet is simply breathtaking. Every move Trump makes, from rolling back clean car standards to propping up dirty coal, takes the country and the world backwards to a time only he and his robber baron friends think about. Get his ass. The oil industry, though, has expressed delight. Oh, you don't say. The wolf expresses delight at the owner of the chicken coop leaving the coop door open. You don't say. You don't say that Scrooge McDuck and all of his dipshit friends are excited at the possibility that they can expedite the eradication of the human race so that way they get a couple more quarters of profit. Voters sent a clear message in support of affordable, reliable, and secure American energy, and the Trump administration is answering the call, said Mike Summers, chief executive of the American Petroleum Institute, who praised Trump for following many of the lobby group's own stated priorities. Oh my God, pardon me. The haste of the administration's environmental rollbacks has been coupled with an aggressive stance that experts say has skirted the law and is more extreme than Trump's first term. The White House has ordered Pam Bondi, the U.S. Attorney General, to target cities and states that have implemented laws to tackle the climate crisis, while the Department of Transportation has sought to tear down New York City's congestion charge for cars entering Manhattan, even though its lawyers have expressed doubt over the legality of such a move. Congestion pricing, by the way, worked. It worked. It not only reduced pollution and reduced the amount of cars in New York City, but it also just made commuting easier for everyone who already lives in the city. New Yorkers were overwhelmingly positive of congestion pricing after it went into effect because they saw just how successful it was. Meanwhile, a sweeping Trump executive order has demanded at least 25 energy and environmental laws expire next year unless they are explicitly renewed. The maximalist approach to these rollbacks, which defies norms over states' independence and checks upon executive power, faces major legal hurdles even with a right-wing dominated Supreme Court. Trump wants to shock and awe, but there are lawsuits being filed on every front that are winning, Berger said. Very few cases have got to the Supreme Court, and we are seeing district and appellate courts shooting down the administration's noncompliance with process. What the administration is doing is unlawful, and so the most likely scenario is that they will lose. The less likely but possible outcome is that the system falls apart and bends to the will of one man, but let's not hope that doesn't happen because then we will be in constitutional crisis mode. Okay, pal. Listen, Mr. Berger, we're already here, pal. We are beyond constitutional crisis, but I agree with you. I hope that we don't just devolve overnight into a fucking North Korea style dictatorship. The frantic pace of the rollbacks was exemplified on a single day on the 12th of March when Trump's EPA announced 31 actions to revise pollution standards that were on track to save 200,000 lives and even reconsider whether greenhouse gases pose a public health risk, a key finding that underpins U.S. climate rules. Lee Zeldin, the EPA administrator, described the barrage as, quote, driving a dagger straight into the heart of the climate change religion. It's so sick how everybody it's just so sick how everyone's a fucking idiot. Like, these people are just brainwashed. These people are cucked to Donald Trump. I've never seen cuckoldry to this level. It's insane. It's insane. It's like, would you rather one guy who doesn't know anything about science or literally decades of empirical data that says climate change is bad? I mean, even ExxonMobil knew about climate change in 1970. Like, this is not a thing. They were aware that they were going to kill the planet and the human race along with it. Trump, meanwhile, has focused his presidential power upon personal fixations, such as the supposed inadequacy of paper straws, which he has banned from federal offices, and the flow of water from showers. I'm not going to lie, I fucking hate paper straws too. Yeah, sorry. Which he considers too weak. I like to take a nice shower to take care of my beautiful hair, Trump said. at the signing of a recent executive order to eliminate a federal water efficiency rule for toilets and showers. I have to stand under the shower for 15 minutes until it gets wet? It comes out drip, drip, drip. It's ridiculous. Is he showering in a hostel? Dude, not even hotel showers are that bad. I mean, that. I can shower in a hotel with this fucking head of hair, and it will not take me 15 minutes to get wet. Where is he showering? I need to know. Does the White House have shitty water pressure? Is that a thing? Is this building being 200 years old the reason that Trump can't get his hair wet? The new showerhead rule doesn't include the standard public comment period, an example of how the administration is testing legal boundaries to speed up regulation cutting. Just saying because I said so isn't a good reason to not go through proper rulemaking, and it's concerning that this is being applied to certain rules, said Kerry Jenks, an environmental law expert at Harvard. Jenks said uncertainty over the attempted rollbacks is compounded by the firing of thousands of federal staff who would normally be tasked with crafting a regulatory framework. Quote, the summer will be very busy as agencies try to put words to paper on how to meet these executive orders, she said. If you don't have expertise in-house to do that, it becomes much harder. But the blitz upon the environment in the administration's first 100 days may not relent during the rest of Trump's term, Berger said. Even if largely checked by the courts, the pace of announcements may slow at some point, but the pressure on our regulatory system and our democracy will not only continue but ramp up, he said. The result will be fewer environmental protections and more people suffering the public health consequences of more pollution. Is that straightforward? Yeah, dude. People are going to get sick and fucking die because of this. It's not only about preventing climate change, but it's also about various other deregulatory practices. Like, I was not joking about the lead paint earlier. I will, listen, it sounds far-fetched, but if paint companies can start putting lead back in their paint to make it cheaper, or they're able to do it for cheaper, they will 100% do that. Forever Chemicals will be back in our water system. Now, they alluded to this in the Guardian article, but the Justice Department is suing 4 individual states over their climate actions, including my home state of New York. The U.S. Justice Department filed lawsuits against 4 states last week, claiming their climate actions conflict with federal authority and President Donald Trump's energy dominance agenda. The DOJ on Wednesday filed lawsuits against Hawaii and Michigan over their plans for legal action against fossil fuel companies for harms caused by climate change. On Thursday, the DOJ sued New York and Vermont, challenging their climate superfund laws that would force fossil fuel companies to pay into state-based funds based on previous greenhouse gas emissions. Quote, these burdensome and ideologically motivated laws and lawsuits threaten American energy independence and our country's economic and national security, Attorney General Pam Bondi said in a statement. The Department of Justice is working to, quote, unleash American energy by stopping these illegitimate impediments to the production of affordable, reliable energy that Americans deserve. Pam Bondi, was it a threat to the country when Jeffrey Epstein was a resident of Florida who had already been convicted of sex crimes and also had a very credible case against him for human trafficking? And yet is that why you didn't arrest him? Because you didn't think that he was a national security threat? I hate this lady so much. I despise her. She is a shit stain on the underpants of the globe. Every word she says, like every time I see her, I just get fucking I just start to shake uncontrollably. Maybe no one should have this much power over me, but it's just like it's so frustrating having to see her be out and about. Also, what the fuck kind of legal defense is this? Obviously, these laws on the books are ideologically motivated, much how your response to it is ideologically motivated. How is she a lawyer? She's stupid, man. The DOJ lawsuits, which legal experts say are unprecedented, mark the latest of the Trump administration's attacks on environmental work and raises concern over states' ability to retain the power to take climate change without federal opposition. DOJ court's firings said the state's plans and policies, quote, impermissibly regulate out-of-state greenhouse gas emissions and obstruct the Clean Air Act's comprehensive federal state framework and the EPA's regulatory discretion. The DOJ cited the Clean Air Act, a federal law authorizing the EPA to regulate air emissions, saying it creates, quote, a program for regulating air pollution in the United States and, quote, displaces the ability of states to regulate greenhouse gases emissions beyond their borders. The DOJ argued Wednesday that Hawaii and Michigan are violating the intent of the act that enables the EPA authority to set national standards for greenhouse gases, citing the state's litigation against oil and gas companies for alleged climate damage. When burned, fossil fuels release emissions such as carbon dioxide that warm the planet. Democratic Hawaii Governor Josh Green said he is targeting fossil fuel companies that he said should take responsibility for their role in the state's climate impacts, including 2023's deadly Lahaina wildfire. Spokespeople for Green and Hawaii Attorney General Ann Lopez confirmed the state filed its lawsuit against 7 groups of affiliated fossil fuel companies and the American Petroleum Institute on Thursday, alleging harm to public trust resources, negligence, and more. The climate crisis is here, and the costs of surviving it are rising every day, Green said in a statement. Hawaii taxpayers should not have to foot the bill. The burden should fall on those who deceived and failed to warn consumers about the climate dangers lurking in their products. The lawsuit is about holding these parties accountable, shifting the costs of surviving the climate crisis back to where they belong, and protecting Hawaii's citizens into the future. I'm totally fine with these respective state governments suing the fossil fuel industry because the oil and gas companies have done empirical and actual harm to not only the United States, but the world as a whole. They should be held accountable for the damages that they've done. Additionally, what percentage, like how many billions of dollars worth of subsidies have these energy companies received? Taxpayer dollars they are getting. And with those taxpayer dollars, they are killing the fucking taxpayer. Not directly, I understand, at least not right now, but they've known about this science for 50 years. They've been allowed to exist unchecked for 50 fucking years, even though wildfires are spawning at ridiculous rates at times of the year that were previously unseen. At a time when the oceans are warming, the temperature is rising, you have droughts in the rainy season and rain in what's supposed to be the dry season. At a point, like, let's not even talk about the rising coastlines for a second. What happens when the seasons become so extreme and so unpredictable that you're unable to grow food? What do we do then? What is the long-term view of the Trump administration in this regard? There's no reasonable conclusion that I can draw here. Meanwhile, Democratic Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel last year tapped private law firms to go after the fossil fuel industry for negatively affecting the state's climate and environment. A spokesperson for Gretchen Whitmer's office deferred to Nessel when asked for comment. This lawsuit is at best frivolous and arguably sanctionable, Nessel said in a statement, which noted that Michigan hasn't filed a lawsuit. If the White House or Big Oil wish to challenge our claims, they can do so when our lawsuit is filed. They will not succeed in any attempt to preemptively bar our access to make our claims in court. I remain undeterred in my intention to file this lawsuit, the president and his big oil donors fear. Meanwhile, Thursday's filings, called the state's Superfund Acts, modeled on the 45-year-old federal Superfund law enacted to address the harm associated with hazardous waste sites, quote, a transparent monetary extraction scheme. Trump has suggested the Superfund laws extort payments from energy entities. New York is looking for $75 billion and has been previously challenged. Wait, what? New York is looking for $75 billion and has been previously challenged by 22 states for the law. Vermont hasn't specified what it is seeking. Both laws were approved last year. Quote, by purporting to regulate the effect of greenhouse gas emissions on climate change, the act necessarily reaches far beyond the states of New York and Vermont, the DOJ argued, saying the states are incorrectly looking to regulate nationwide and global airspace. But they're not. They are looking to regulate their own respective airspaces. If the EPA decides on like a minimum baseline, it is okay for states to go below that threshold. It is fine for the states to be more pro-climate, or it is easier for the states to have better climate policy than the federal government. I don't have an issue for that. In fact, fighting climate change would be much easier if the states, and much more effective, if the states were able to legislate at a faster rate than the federal government. A spokesperson for Kathy Hochul said, quote, Governor Hochul proudly signed the Climate Superfund Act because she believes corporate polluters should pay for the damage done to our environment, not everyday New Yorkers. We will not back down, not from big oil, not from federal overreach. New York Attorney General Letitia James said the state's Climate Superfund law, quote, ensures that those who contributed to the climate crisis helped pay for the damage. In its filings, the DOJ repeated the Republican president's claims of America's energy emergency and crisis, quote, at a time when states should be contributing to a national effort to secure reliable sources of domestic energy, all 4 states are choosing to, quote, stand in the way. Would it change if, like, New York wanted to manufacture their own solar panels? Like, would that make it easier for you? Just say that you love sucking the shriveled up cock of ExxonMobil, of Chevron, of BP, of Shell, even though BP is overseas. You still get it. Like, don't make this about national security. Just say that you love when they dump oil and gas all over you. You love to roll around in it like the slippery little slutty pig that you are. But legal experts raised concerns over the government's arguments. This is my favorite like piece of journalism. Like, obviously, a real fucking lawyer, not Pam Bondi, is going to look at this case and say, what are they talking about? How is this a thing? There is no evidence. The reasoning is bullshit. The argument is laughable at best. Michael Gerard, founder and faculty director of the Columbia University Sabin Center for Climate Change Law, said usual procedure is the DOJ asking the court to intervene in pending environmental litigation, and in some instances across the country. While this week's suits are consistent with Trump's plans to oppose state actions that interfere with energy dominance, quote, it's highly unusual, Gerard told the Associated Press of the cases of Hawaii and Michigan, quote, what we expected is they would intervene in the pending lawsuits, not try to preempt or prevent a lawsuit from being filed. It's an aggressive move in support of the fossil fuel industry. It raises all kinds of eyebrows. It's an intimidation tactic, and it's telling the fossil fuel companies how much Trump loves them. People talk about oligarchy. They always think of Russia and how all of the wealthiest people have direct play on policy. People in the United States will be like, that's not us. We're a liberal democracy. It's impossible for us to have oligarchy. Like, this is that. This is the oil and gas executives outright pushing for specific legislation. It does not get more in the open than that. Ann Carlson, an environmental law professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, who has previously consulted on climate litigation, said this week's lawsuits look, quote, like DOJ grasping at straws, noting that EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin said his agency is seeking to overturn a finding under the Clean Air Act that greenhouse gases endanger public health and welfare. So on the one hand, the United States is saying Michigan and other states can't regulate greenhouse gases because the Clean Air Act does so, and therefore preempts states from regulating, Carlson said. On the other hand, the U.S. is trying to say that the Clean Air Act should not be used to regulate. The hypocrisy is pretty stunning. The hypocrisy is not so much stunning anymore. It's just tiresome. it's just tiresome to have to deal with people who say they people who talk out of both sides of their mouths. I would be much not that I would be like thrilled or anything, but it would just be much easier to have this kind of commentary, as I was just saying back a couple stories ago with the sewage water. It'd be much easier to have these conversations if they're if the Republicans' intentions were on full display, like if they were actually principled and spoke about, yeah, we know that what we're doing is bad, but we love doing bad shit. So we're gonna continue to fuck up your life.